If we add the 3 descendants of this race of Negroes, which cannot be traced back to Atlantis, and do not include, according to Genesis, among the descendants of Noah, we have 4 descendants, which are white, red, yellow, and black, recognized by the Egyptians as all. There seems to be some doubt for the Semitic race. It is a different racial class because it is both Semitic and Hamites. As, for example, Sheba and Hawilah, the Mash, or Meshach, races classified between the sons of Shem and the sons of Japhet. If Arya was of the Japhetic race, and if Japhet was one of the patriarch's sons who escaped the flood, then surely, if the Genesis tradition is true, Arya came from the submerged land, namely, Atlantis. According to Genesis, the descendants of Japhet who escaped the flood with Noah were the Ionians, the inhabitants of Morea, the inhabitants of the coast of Cilicia, Asia Minor, the Cyprians, the Macedonian Dodonenes, the Iberians, and the Thracians. These are all recognized today as Aryan, except for Iberia. In fact, there seems to be confusion from Hamitic and Semitic. This is shown in the mixture of Hamitic and Semitic inscriptions in some of the most ancient, in the facilities of the relationship between the Semites of Asia and the Hamites of Egypt, in its unobservable absorption of all the Asiatic Hamites, and in the Semitic adoption of the Hamitic gods and religious systems. It is evident that, in the period not long before, the two families had settled together and spoke the same language. Winchell's Pre-Adamites, p. 36. Would it not be more plausible to suppose that the so-called Semitic race of Genesis was only part of the Hamitic lineage, and that we should look for the great part of Noah's 3 sons in the Turanian race? Francis Lenormant argued that the Turanian race was descended from Magog, son of Japhet. He considered the Turanians to be intermediaries between the white and yellow races, which he later made into each of them. Uzbeks, Osmanli Turks and Hungarians are not to be distinguished in appearance from the most perfect branches of the white race. On the other hand, Chons almost exactly resembles Tongauzes, who belong to the yellow race. The Turanian language is characterized by the same agglutinative characteristics found in America, Mongolia and India, with the same absence of bushy beards. The color of the Inca Empire is yellow. Yellow is the color of the imperial family in China. Peruvian religion is sun worship. The sun is God. In Peru, Pachacamac is considered a sovereign creator. Kamak Haya is the name of a Hindu goddess. Haile is a lode of each verse of the song composed praising the sun and the Incas. Mr. John Rankin comes from the word Allah from the word Haile, also the word hallelujah. Pay attention to the word Kamak Haya. This is similar to the literacy of the word Mahachakya text literacy, appearing in the panel frame 43 bas-reliefs of Borobudur which are closed. One of the words that are absorbed into Sanskrit which is also used in books such as the Upanishads, Veda. Called Shaitya by European historians, Arya, are the Kaka ancestors of the archipelago, written on the bas-reliefs of Vwana Kaka Phala, Borobudur with the literary text of the word Mahachakya, nation Kakya, Sakya, Saka, Great Aryan. The 60-year cycle is used between most of the countries of East Asia, and between the Muiscas of the highlands of Bogota. Quipu, a count-tied cable, is used in Peru and in China. Bancroft. Native Races, Volume V. p. 48. In Peru and China, both use hieroglyphs, which are read from top to bottom. Ibid. It seems most obvious to me, said Humboldt, that monuments, the method of calculating time, the cosmogony system, and the many myths of America, offer striking analogies to ideas from an Asian East analogy that suggests ancient communication, and not only the result of the uniform conditions in which all nations were found at the beginning of civilization. In Cambodia's devastated cities, which lie further east than Burma, recent research has found theocallis in Mexico, and the remains of temples of the same type and pattern of those of the Yucatan. And when we reach the sea, we meet in Suku, in Java, a teocalli which is completely synonymous with Tehuantepec. Mr. Ferguson said, as we advance eastward from the Euphrates Valley, at every step we encounter art forms becoming more and more like those of Central America, builders of Babylon, p. 88. Prescott said, the coincidence is strong enough to authorize the belief that the Anahuac civilization was to some degree influenced by that of East Asia. And, second, that's such a difference to bring back communication for a very long time. Mexico. Volume E. p. 418. All appearances, continued Lenormant, ancient history of the East, will lead us to regard the Turanians as the first branch of the Japhet family to go out into the world. and by premature separation, by isolated and antagonistic existence, taking, or more precisely preserved, completely different physiognomy. This is the kind of white race as imperfectly developed. We might consider this yellow race to be the first and oldest of Atlantis and therefore, the farthest reaches of the same source. Then came the Hamitic race, then none other than the descendants of the Japhetic race. About the Ad and Atlantis in a summary of several mythologies. We will be able to find a description of the people of Ad and Atlantis in the most ancient traditions of various races. The great king of Musselman was Shed-Ad ben Ad, or Shed-Ad, son of Ad, or Atlantis. Among the Arabs who were the first inhabitants of the land were known as the Adites people, from their ancestor, called Ad, Ham's grandson. These Adites may be the people of Atlantis or Atlantis. They are personified by a king who is considered to be of his ancestral origin, and given several centuries of life after him. In the book, The Ancient History of the East, Lenormant and Chevalier, Volume E. pg. 295. They came from the northeast. He married 1,000 wives, had 4,000 sons, and lived 200 years. His offspring multiplied. After his death, his sons Shaddad and Shaddad reigned as successors to Adites. In the past, the people of Ad were 1,000 tribes, each consisting of several thousand men. The great conquest is associated with Shaddad. He was very powerful and authoritative, it is said, all as the predecessors of the Arabs and Iraqis. The migration of the Canaanites, the establishment of civilization in Syria, and the shepherds' invasion of Egypt were, by many Arab writers, attributed to and preceded by this expedition of Shaddad. Ibid. p. 296. Shaddad built a palace decorated with extraordinary columns, and was surrounded by a magnificent garden. It's called Iram. It was a heaven that Shaddad constructed in imitation of the heavenly, which he had heard of. Ancient History of the East, p. 296. In other words, an ancient race that worshipped the sun, with a great procession of ritual worship, then conquered Arabia early in history. They were the children of Atlantis. Their king tried to make a palace and Garden of Eden like Atlantis. The Adites are remembered by the Arabs as a great and civilized race. They were depicted as men of enormous stature, their strength equal to their size, and able to easily move large stones. They were excellent architects and builders. They erected many monuments high out of their strength, and so, among the Arabs, there was a custom to call the remaining large stone ruins the Adi people building. To this day the Arabs say, the Ad. In the Quran they are said to have made in the buildings they built on high places for nothing, phrases which prove that their idolatry is thought to have been colored by the culture of Sabism or worship of the stars. Ibid. Lenormant. In this legend, we find traces of a high civilization, a constructor of great buildings, with an advanced civilization, similar to that of Chaldea, which had a religion similar to that of Babylon. Material progress was aligned with great immorality and obscene rites. The facts this must be true and true history, for everywhere they meet the Ethiopians, among the Canaanites their brethren are from. Quote. Also a great calamity that destroyed the entire Adite nation, except for the few who fled because they had left idolatry. Black clouds covered their land in which the whole area was fierce storms and great floods, which wiped out everything. The first Adites were followed by the second Adites, perhaps this second Adite people who have escaped from the great disaster. The center of his power is the empire. Sheba. The Adites survived for 1,000 years. The remains of the Adites people can be seen from the monuments in Egypt as well as the Egyptians themselves. Their hair is red or sunburnt. Their large shrine is a pyramid building. Ancient History of the East, page 321. Agatharchides on the Sabian, from the book De Mari Erythreo, p. 102. Their homes were extraordinarily decorated, and utensils of all kinds, gold and silver, bedding and silver, and all furnishings of astonishing wealth. The buildings they owned were with columns covered in gold, or silver. On the frieze, the ornaments, and the door frame in which they put the gold plates of precious stones. Quote. All this brings to mind one of the descriptions given by the Spaniards of sun temples in Peru. The people there worshipped Phoenician gods with slightly changed names. Their religion was the sun's main worshipper. It was originally a religion without form, without idolatry, and without the priesthood. Ibid. p. 325. They worshipped the sun from the top of the pyramid. They believed in the immortality of the soul. In all this we see the resemblance to Atlantis. The great Ethiopian or Kushite Empire, which in the earliest times, as Mr. Rawlinson put it, from the Caucasus to the Indian Ocean, from the shores of the Mediterranean Sea to the mouth of the river Ganges, was the empire of Dionysus, the kingdom of Ad, the kingdom of Atlantis. El-Eldrisi called the language spoken to this day by Mara Arabs, in East Arabia, the language of the Ad people, and Dr. J. H. Carter, in the Bombay Journal of July, 1847, said, "This is the softest and sweetest language I have ever heard." It would be interesting to compare this dialect to Central American languages. The Egyptian god Thoth was a god who called at Havas. We turn to another ancient race, the Indo-European family, the Aryan race. In Sanskrit Adam, it means formerly. Among Hindus people call the first person as Ad Ima, his wife is Heva. They live on an island, said to be Sri Lanka. They left the island and arrived at the mainland. When a great natural disaster occurred, their communication with the land of the parents was forever cut off. This is recorded in the Bible in India. Here we seem to have memories of the destruction of Atlantis. Bryant said, Ad was the first. The Persians call the first person, Adamah. Adon is one of the names of the Phoenician supreme deity, from that comes the name of the Greek god, Adonis. Listed in Arv Genesis or Ar Ad of the Cushites, now known as Ru Ad. It is a series of cities connected 12 miles along the coast, filled with ruins of the greatest and most majestic of all times. Sir William Jones says the people were Persians in the earliest times. He said, Moshan assures us that the opinion of his predecessor is that the first king of Iran, and all the earth, is Mashab Ad, which he received from the Creator, and recorded among several scriptures, in the heavenly language, used by the author Musulman, gives the Arabic title, Dasatir, or Regulations. Mashab Ad, in the opinion of the ancient Persians, the one who was left behind at the end of the last great cycle of his people. At first the king of Atlantis. The naming seems to be seen in these ancient gods grouped together as Aditya, and in this name, Aditya, we find a strong resemblance to the Semitic culture as Adites, and other stories about Atlantis, or Atlantis. In corroborating this view, we can conclude 1. The deities grouped together as Aditya are the most ancient in Hindu mythology. 2. They were all gods of light, or sun gods. Whitney's Oriental Studies and Linguistics, p. 39. 3. There are 12 of them. 4. These 12 deities preside over the 12 months of the year. 5. They are an uptake from a very remote past. Whitney, it seems like this is an attempt by Indian religion to make new developments morally. 6. Direction, which is a change in the character and condition of society, has caused it to fail in the middle, and returns to forgetfulness, although it is not yet half finished and unclear. 7. These gods were called sons of Aditi, just as in the Bible we find the similarity in the naming of sons of Adab, who were the originators and first musicians. Aditi is not a goddess as the queen's daughter, she is a fair child. 8. Aditya is exalted above all imperfection, they do not sleep or blink. The Greeks regarded as representing God, they were both awake and all-knowing. Their character is all truth. They hate evil. We have seen the same traits the Greeks had for the kings of Atlantis. 9. The sun is sometimes referred to as Aditya. 10. Among Aditya is Varuna, the equivalent of Uranos, who identifies with Atlantis. In the Veda, Varuna is the god of the seas. Aditya represents an earlier and purer form of religion, while in the long spiritual chants of prayer to the other gods, life, wealth, strength, to Aditya is generosity, forgiveness of sins, freedom from guilt, and repentance. Oriental and Linguistic Studies, page 43. Aditya, like the Adites, identified with the doctrine of the immortality of the soul. Yama is the god of living outside. In Persian stories he appears as Yima, and as made ruler of the Golden Age and founder of heaven. Ibid. p. 45. C. Zamna, page 167 ante. Given all these facts, one cannot doubt that the legends of the sons of Ad, people of Adites, and people of Aditya, all refer to Atlantis. George Smith, in the account of the Chaldeans and of creation, page 78, which is elaborated from the Babylonian version, shows that there was an original human race at the beginning of Chaldean history, a dark race, the Zalmat Kakadi, called Ad-Mi, or Ad-Ami. They are a fallen and opposite race of Mai-Saku, or light race. The fall probably refers to their destruction by the Great Flood, as a result of moral degradation and the wrath of the gods. The name Adam is used in legends, but as the name of a race, not men. Genesis chapters 3:2 clearly says that God created man male and female, and called their name Adam. That is, these people are Adami, the people of Ad, or Atlantis. The author of the book of Genesis, says M. Schobel, in speaking of people being swallowed up by calamity, always describes them as Hadam, Adamite men. The Cain race lived and reproduced far from the land of Seth, in other words, away from a land devastated by calamity. Josephus, who gives us an account of the primitive tradition of the Jews, tells us chapter E.P. 42, that Cain traveled in many countries, before he came to the land of Nod. The Bible does not tell us that Cain's race died by calamity. Cain comes out of the presence of the Lord. He does not call his name. Those who are destroyed are sons of Jehovah. Quote, all this shows that the great colony was dispatched by a civilization source before sinking into the sea. Across the ocean we find Guatemalans claiming their descent from a goddess called a Tit, or an ancestor who lived for 400 years, and first taught to worship the true God, which they later forgot. Bancroft's Native Races, Volume E. p. 75. While the famous stone calendar in Mexico shows that the sun is usually called Tonatiuh, but when it was called the god of disaster it was later called Atl Tonatiuh, or Adonatiuh. Valentini's Mexican Calendar Stone, Maya Archaeology, p. 15. Thus we find the sons of Ad at the foundation of all the most ancient human races, namely the Hebrews, Arabs, Chaldeans, Hindus, Persians, Egyptians, Ethiopians, Mexicans, and Central Americans. Historical testimony shows that all of these races when traced back to Atlantis. It can be concluded that the Adites known to the Arabs were not the first Aad people but were the human remains who survived the Aad disaster and moved to South Arabia. This actually corresponds to the verse of the Quran. And that he is God, who owns the Raw star, and that he destroyed the first people of Ad, and the people of Thamud. So there is no one left by him alive. And the Noah before that. In fact they are the most despotic and most ungodly. Surah and Najm, 49-52. And it is possible that the Aad people also have ritual worship of celestial bodies, for example, the star Sirius. If we study the Adites who landed in South Arabia eventually developed into the Sabaean people who we know worship the sun. The 11,000-year-old Göbekli Tepe site, the same as Plato's time of the destruction of Atlantis, also seems to cult the star Sirius. We can see the similarities in the stories that come from the scriptures as follows. 1. According to the Bible the founder of the Tower of Babel is Nimrod the son of Cush bin Ham bin Noah, while according to the Book of Jubilee the Tower of Babel is 2,484 meters high. This is the tallest building in the world and no one has matched it until now. 2. According to the Quran, the Aad people erected very high pillars which had never been made before on the face of the earth. 3. According to Greek mythology Atlas supports heaven and earth and is symbolized by towering pillars touching the sky. Father of Atlas according to Greek mythology is Iapetus who was probably Euphits bin Na. Meanwhile, according to Plato, the father of Atlas was Poseidon who was probably Sidon bin Canaan bin Ham bin Noah. 4. According to Indian mythology Kashyap is the father of the Adityas who are also known as the Devas. Kashyap was probably Cush bin Ham bin Noah, while the Adityas were probably Aads. Kashyap's wives were the children of Prajpati or Euphits bin 5. So the Aad people are probably the descendants of Euphits and Ham. This also fits the biblical narrative where the founder of the Tower of Babel is Nimrod, the son of Cush bin Ham bin Noah. It is also in accordance with the Arab legend that the Adites Aad are the descendants of Ham bin Na. So the Adityas from Indian mythology were probably Nimrod and his people.